All right, guys. So you would think that after a interesting and tumultuous past week, that cooler heads would prevail. People would chill out a little bit, come to their senses on what happened, and we would move forward in a reasonable fashion. However, that's not how politics work. The Democrats are coming out in full force and continuing to pour gas on the fire. They're going to ratchet it up all the way to 100% against the Republicans. And in my opinion, what I see happening right now is that the Democrats are taking advantage of this moment to launch an early assault on the top GOP contenders in 2024. Obviously, President Trump is at the top of that. And that's why they're pushing to have him removed either via the 25th Amendment or via impeachment. And Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, who have been the main targets because they decided they want to stand up for their constituents and try to give them a voice, have their concerns be heard in the proper setting, in the right way. The mainstream media has decided to demonize them, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they're specifically coming after these two because they also happen to be top contenders for the GOP 2024 nomination. And I think that the Democrats and the liberal media are taking advantage of the situation to try to destroy their career 4 years ahead of time to weaken the competition for them in 2024 when most likely Kamala is going to be up for re-election. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys, like I said, I think the Democrats are trying to line up the top GOP nominees for 2024, and they're trying to get rid of them, okay? And I think it's sad that the Republicans seem to be going along with it because they're allowing the Democrats to pull at their heartstrings so they can come out here and virtue signal and attack their own people, okay? So one of these Republicans, Pat Toomey, who's a high-ranking Senate Republican from Pennsylvania, did an interview with Face the Nation in which he didn't sound too good to me. Let's take a look.
Let me start with this. There's calls for resignation, impeachment, removal by way of the 25th Amendment. You yourself said he's committed impeachable offenses. In your view, what is the most appropriate way for Donald Trump to exit office?
Well, I think the best way for our country, Chuck, is for the president to resign and go away as soon as possible. I acknowledge that may not be likely, but I think that would be best. It does not look as though there is the will or the consensus to exercise the 25th Amendment option. And I don't think there's time to do an impeachment. There's 10 days left before the president leaves anyway. I think the best thing would be a resignation.
The issue of impeachment. You have said he committed impeachable offenses, and there's clearly the timing issue. But one of the goals, one of the penalties that come with impeachment, this is almost as much about removing him from current office, but it would prevent him from ever holding federal office again, assuming a majority Senate vote, if he's convicted, would also then do that. Should that be the goal? How to make sure this man never holds federal office ever again in that because of what he did on Wednesday?
Yeah, so Chuck, a couple of things. One, it's not clear the Constitution permits impeachment, conviction, and prohibition against ever serving again, which is a separate vote. That's permitted after a person has left office, which is what would have to happen here. So whether that could be done in a binding fashion is really an open question. So that's number one. Number two, I would certainly hope, and I actually do believe, that the president has disqualified himself. I don't think he's a viable candidate for office ever again because of the outrageous behavior in the post-election period. So those would be my 2 points.
What kind of responsibility do you hold Senators Hawley and Cruz for what happened on Wednesday?
Look, I think what they're gonna have a lot of soul searching to do, and the problem is they were complicit in the big lie, this lie that that Donald Trump won the election in a landslide and it was all stolen. They compounded that with this notion that somehow this could all be reversed in the final moments of the congressional proceedings. So that's going to haunt them for a very long time.
I know you are you are not crazy about what you might consider overreach. Would it be overreach to kick either man out of the Senate?
I think so. I think they're going to pay a very heavy price. What they did was, it was technically permissible under the Senate rules. Their voters will decide whether they get another term, and they're both young enough men that I'm sure they would certainly like to do that. So I think it should be left to the voters of their state to decide what their fate is.
You regret your vote for president now?
Now, knowing what I knew then, I think as the 75 million Americans making this evaluation between this radicalization of the Democratic Party and an administration that had very significant successes, I understand, and it was a rational decision. Nobody could have anticipated what has happened, I don't think, subsequent to the election.
And guys, don't get me wrong, I understand the current situation, right? Obviously, there's not much the Republican Party can do at this point to come out and strongly defend the president at this point. However, I do think they need to chill out on the going forward impeachment and the 25th Amendment stuff. And the reason why is because it's just unnecessary. The president's about to be out of office. Just let him leave office, okay? He's already committed to leaving. Just let him leave, right? Let him leave, and then you avoid pissing more people off, because if you impeach the president and then we have to go through a trial, right, whether he's in office or out of office, that is just going to keep everything going, and it's going to keep tempers flared. That's all it's going to do. It's going to hurt. So I think that the Republicans would be smart right now to just be like, we don't need to do anything. We need to just lay low, wait to January 20th, and then we'll be good to go. Because, guys, the Democrats are not holding back. Look at some of the stuff that they're saying here. Let's read. Sherrod Brown, a Democratic senator from Ohio, calls for Cruz and Hawley's immediate resignations and said they had, quote, betrayed their oaths of office and abetted a violent insurrection on our democracy. Quote, if they don't resign, he added, the Senate must expel them. Joe Manchin, Pat Murray of Washington, Chris Coons of Delaware, Tina Smith of Minnesota were among other Democrats to call for Cruz and Hawley to go. Again, guys, the Democrats are just straight up saying they got to go. They got to get out of here. And the Republicans got to grow some cojones and start defending it. Start defending them. Because, guys, at the end of the day, what Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley was doing, I can argue very easily that what they were doing may have possibly could have helped prevent a situation like that. That could have been even bigger, right? Under the right circumstances. At least they're trying to show their constituency that their voices are being heard. At the very least. I don't think any of them realistically thought that the election would be turned over. I really don't. And people are trying to frame it as like a political opportunity, I think, are being intellectually lazy. Because if they've been paying attention like I have, to particularly Josh Hawley. I mean, Ted Cruz, it might have been a political stunt for him, but I really do think that Josh Hawley felt passionately about, kind of defending the integrity of this election. I really do. And I think it's really sad to see it kind of go this way. On Sunday morning, Joe Manchin of West Virginia told CNN, quote, whether they resign or not, I don't know, but how can they live with themselves knowing that people have died because of their words and actions? I can say that for all the Democrat politicians that egged on Black Lives Matter and all these other protests with Antifa. The ones that refuse to condemn it, that can be said for all those politicians. So, this type of stuff, guys, the Democrats are trying to guilt trip and trying to shame the Republicans. And the Republicans got to stand up. They got to stand up for Cruz and Hawley because, there is an argument to be made that what they was doing actually was the right thing to do in the wake of the growing unrest in this country about how people feel the election went. And, again, I can't help but feel like they're just letting the Democrats just push them around, right? Take a look at this ad that the Democrats is putting out while this man is getting guilt tripped by Chuck Todd. Check this out.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass. The whole world is watching, folks. If you just roll over, if you don't fight, we will not go quietly into the night.
Let's have trial by combat.
Have the courage to do the right thing. Fight.
If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
You see that, guys? While Pat Toomey is letting himself be sunned by Chuck Todd, the Democrats are running full-scale ads like this. They're running a campaign to have the president impeached. That's how the Democrats are playing right now. They're going full force on this. And like I said, guys, you may disagree with me, but I'm telling you, what happened at the Capitol on the 6th gave the Democrats years worth of advertising material to use against any Republican. Okay, that's what it did. And you're seeing it. They're using it right now. They're running a full-scale ad campaign to try to take down anybody that's associated with the president. Now, Alan Dershowitz, who was a part of the president's legal team during the first impeachment from the Democrats, came out and gave the answer that I think the Republicans should be going with right now. He gave a constitutional argument as to why it is impossible to impeach the president.
So we'll be watching that, but I got to get your thoughts on this 25th Amendment or this impeachment. House Democrats have drafted articles of impeachment they will introduce on Monday. If the president doesn't resign, tell me your reaction to this. Will you defend this in court if it goes to trial?
It will not go to trial. All the Democrats can do is impeach the president in the House of Representatives. For that, all you need is a majority vote. You don't have to take evidence. There are no lawyers involved. But the case cannot come for trial in the Senate because the Senate has rules, and the rules would not allow the case to come to trial until, according to the majority leader, until 1 p.m. on January 20th, an hour after President Trump leaves office. And the Constitution specifically says the president shall be removed from office upon impeachment, etc. It doesn't say the former president. Congress has no power to impeach or try a private citizen, whether it be a private citizen named Donald Trump or named Barack Obama or anyone else. The jurisdiction is limited to a sitting president, and so there won't be a trial. But what I worry about deeply is the impact of impeachment on the First Amendment. For 100 years, the Supreme Court and other courts have struggled to develop a jurisprudence which distinguishes between advocacy and incitement. And in the leading case of Brandenburg versus Ohio, a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court basically said that what President Trump said on Wednesday, as much as I disapprove of it and many people disapprove of it on its merits, is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. It comes within core political speech. And to impeach a president for having exercised his First Amendment rights would be so dangerous to the Constitution. It would lie around like a loaded weapon, ready to be used by either party against the other party. And that's not what impeachment or the 25th Amendment were intended to be.
All right, guys. So you hear Alan Dershowitz's argument there. He's basically saying that, one, they cannot impeach the president fast enough. They can't impeach him once he becomes a private citizen. And also what they would be trying to impeach him for, which is inciting a riot, that is protected under the First Amendment, which is free speech. That's essentially Alan Dershowitz's argument in a nutshell. However, there are other arguments. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so I don't know which ones are true. But I'm going to go over 3 other arguments that are contrary to what Alan Dershowitz just outlined for us. Legal experts are divided into 3 camps of opinion, however, on what happens if the president leaves office. One group says a president can be impeached only while in office. Quote, I tend to believe it is only for current office holders, said Harvard law professor Cass Sunstein, author of, quote, Impeachment, A Citizen's Guide. All right, so this is the first camp, says he only can be impeached while still holding office. According to a second group of scholars, if the House votes to impeach while the president is in office, the Senate can proceed to trial even after the president has left office. Once an impeachment begins in the House, it may continue to a Senate trial. I don't see any constitutional problem with the Senate acting fast or slowly, says Michael Gerhardt, a law professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So the second legal expert here says that the impeachment could begin in the House and may continue to a Senate trial even after the president is out of office, as long as it begins when he's in office. And a third view is that the entire process can begin even after the president is out of office. Quote, the constitutional case for a late impeachment has more strengths and fewer flaws than the case against it, wrote Brian Kalt, a professor at Michigan State University College of Law, in a widely cited law review article on the subject. All right, so this legal expert is saying that the president could be impeached even after he leaves office, and they can have trial after he leaves office as well. Moving on, no president has ever been impeached after leaving office, but there is one legal precedent that may be important. In 1876, Secretary of War William Belknap was investigated by a House for corruption. Just minutes before the House was set to vote on his impeachment, he raced to the White House and handed his resignation to President Ulysses Grant. The House went ahead and impeached him anyways, and the Senate proceeded to have a trial. A majority voted to convict, but not the 2/3 required, so he was acquitted. The scholars in the second camp point to this example to bolster their argument that even after leaving office, a president could be convicted and barred from holding future federal office. Could Trump sue to stop a Senate trial? He could try, but it would be a tough case to win because the Constitution says the Senate shall have, quote, the sole power to try all impeachments. All right, guys. So in summary, you can see all the different paths that could happen with this impeachment process. Now, I do not believe that the Republicans should move forward with impeachment. I think that's a terrible idea, and I think it's absolutely unnecessary. Now, the only reason I can see them moving forward with it is if they've decided internally that they don't want Trump ever running for office again, and that they've permanently disassociated themselves from the president and also the president's supporters as well. That to me would signal that the GOP is just done with having to do with anything involving the president and including supporters, because nothing would piss supporters off more than the idea that the president couldn't even run for office again, even if he wanted to. That would really be the nail in the coffin, I think, in terms of the GOP trying to separate themselves from Trump. However, I really don't think it's worth it at this point. And the reason why is, like I said before, it's just going to alienate the GOP and divide us even further at this point. So I do think they need to focus their messaging on, hey, you know what, let's move on past this. We don't need to be impeaching. And they also need to do a better job of defending Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. Right? I understand you guys are mad that they went through with it. I understand that. But like I said in past videos, Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, their jobs are their jobs. Right? When their constituents ask, why didn't you listen to me? Why didn't you try to address my concerns? The answer to that question can't be because Pat Toomey or Mitch McConnell or Mitt Romney told me not to do it. That can't be the answer, right? When you had an opportunity. I really do think the media is giving them more than a hard time, but the reason why, in my opinion, is because they're front runners. And the Democrats are using the media to go after the GOP front runners. And it's really sad to see the GOP go right along with it, falling for the okie doke, the crocodile tears, the guilt tripping. It's really sad. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.